You might be mistaken that at first glance, this is part of a Pan-African flag family, but then you realise that it's very cold and windy where I am, and therefore it's very unlikely. So, why does this European country of Lithuania have Pan-African colours on their national flag? All will be revealed in this Baltic Flags in 50 Places special. Okay, so the Lithuanian flag isn't based on the Pan-African flags. Why would it be? But it does have its origins on another flag style much closer to home. Well, I say close, I actually mean in the same continent. But the influences don't stop there. There's also input from the Russian Empire, the French Revolution, the USA, the Germans, Soviets, as well as a painter and an archaeologist all play their part that concludes with this. But how? Well, that's not an easy question to answer, as Lithuania has a long and complicated history. But luckily for you, I will give you an abridged version and keep this short and sweet and possibly relevant. Back in its infancy, the early flag was based on this coat of arms style, the armoured knight on horseback rearing up against an unknown enemy. This version of the flag has its own history and origins and plays a big part in today's Lithuanian society, and because of that, I've made its own episode here because it's rather impressive and all equine-esque. There's also a link in the description as well, but to recap, this is the period. 1410, the Battle of Grunwald, this war banner was used, called Vytis. 14th century, the shield sometimes has a double cross or the columns of Gediminas. 15th century, the colours were standardised, and yes, he's also on my cap. 1795, Russian Empire appears, and by 1858 they had taken over the country, and with that they brought their national flags, first this black, yellow, white triband, and then the current Russian flag of white, blue, red. However, the Tsar had let the local ruling council continue to use the Vytis as a local flag. The Russian Empire was gone by 1918 at the end of the Great War, and Lithuania was free to use whatever it wanted. But we have to go back slightly to 1905, and it's the Great Seimas of Vilnius, a national congress, that wanted to look at, among other things, the national identity. Patriarch of the nation, Jonas, proposed that the Vytis be reinstated. But the assembly were a little bit fed up by that design by then, and wanted something that would see the country in a new light, bold and unique. Besides, the horse and knight were too damn complicated to sew, and no one could be bothered to handle the complaints from the seamstresses. This argument banged on for about 12 years until Vilnius Conference of 1917. While the world was at war with itself, artist Antanas came up with a green and red flag. However, the attendants thought it was too dark and gloomy. As the USA joined the war and Germany occupied neighbouring capital Riga of Latvia, painter and archaeologist Tadeusz suggested putting a thin yellow line through the middle of the flag to represent the morning sunshine. However, the delegates were still divided and asked the three who'd all come up with ideas to come up with something new. So the patriarch, the artist and the architect went away and had a good long think. A year later, to try and please everyone, which is, as we know, always a bad idea, they came up with this yellow, green and red design, with the Vytis in the canton or in the middle. They weren't too fussed either way. The Council of Lithuania liked this flag and accepted it over the Vytis flag because the old flag was part of what was called then the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, which at the time included parts such as Belarus and Ukraine. Plus the red field on that flag was very much associated with revolution. So this new design was written into the 1922 Constitution. Now that things had settled down war-wise in the world, however, there was one tiny element missed, and that was the shield which houses the Vytis. It was probably deemed too expensive to incorporate a complaints department for the seamstresses, and no one wanted to manage that, especially as the call centre was still yet to be a thing. Besides, the triband design was clean and demonstrated independence, just like the flag of France did during their revolution. This flag stayed in play until 1940, when yet another war started raging. This time Lithuania didn't have time to have meetings about national state symbols or knights on horseback. The now Soviets turned up to occupy them. The first flag was this jolly red design with a hammer and sickle with the name in the top left. This lasted until 1953, when they were given something a little bit more exciting because it had a bit more colour and less writing. And we all know that according to the good flag, bad flag instruction manual, writing on flags is an absolute no-no. However, the tricolour flag of the independent Lithuania did not fall into oblivion. It was secretly hoisted in public on occasions of the 16th of February and discreetly kept in homes of Lithuanians and used to express resistance. On the 7th of October 1988, the tricolour flag was for the first time hoisted on the top of the Gediminas Tower as an important historical symbol of the nation. And a month later, on the 18th of November in 1988, the Supreme Council of the Soviet Socialist Republic of Lithuania, under public pressure, was forced to confer the tricolour flag the status of the national flag. The colour standard, but now in the Soviet 1:2 ratio, because obviously that makes all the difference. They were approved by the Presidium of the Supreme Council of the Soviet Socialist Republic of Lithuania on the 25th of January 1989. The colours of the flag, yellow close to orange, intensely green and red close to purple, were reproduced according to the flags of the independent Republic of Lithuania, preserved by museums and private people. In 1992, the constitution of a fully independent Lithuania changed the ratio to 3:5, with the standard flag being 1 metre by 1.7 metres. And yes, I did miss out the minor details of Nazi Germany occupying the land between 1941 and 44, but we can probably do without a certain flag on display. The national flag flies at the top of the Gediminas Tower, which is a barometer of what the country's national flag is, considering that all the other national flags that have been mentioned have been displayed at some point here. The colours: yellow for the sun and prosperity, green for forest, countryside, liberty and hope, while the red is a reminder of those who spilled their blood defending their country. But the story doesn't end there. The Vytis flag, the chap on the white horse, well, he makes a comeback in 2004. The knight and his stallion were given the status of state flag, called the Historical National Memorial Flag, and can be seen throughout the capital Vilnius today. Hence why I have him on my cap, which is where I bought it from. Oh, and the knight and his horse are also used as the country's naval jack, so now they get to see the world. Ironic that a navy uses a land animal as their jack. Mine is not to reason why. But Lithuania is just one of 3 countries that make up the Baltics, and to discover the next national flag of the Baltics, click here to understand how people wrapped up in a white sheet while bleeding everywhere ended up being a national symbol. Gruesome, I know. Bon voyage.